beer, it's good for you.
Hello and welcome to the video. Within this video I'll be sharing a new tried and tested recipe for an English best bitter that is very classic to this beer style. For those that are unaware, English bitter beers are actually not very bitter at all. However, this style name originates from the 19th century when this style was bitter, at least at this time compared to other beer styles. For anyone who has never tried a best bitter before, I would urge them to do so, as the majority of beer drinkers really enjoy these and they are suitable for drinking throughout the seasons too. This video will take you on a step-by-step informative guide to preparation, brewing and fermenting this beer, and at the end I will show you the end beer from this brew and provide tasting notes. So let's get started. Let's make a start with a look at this recipe's vital statistics. As you can see, the recipe offers an approximate ABV of 4.2%, making it a good session beer which can be enjoyed throughout an evening or perhaps even a day if you want to be authentically British. The PUGU shown almost at the bottom of the screen shows the relationship between bitterness and alcohol at 0.71, making this one a very easy drinking beer for sure. This recipe, like all of my shared recipes, has gone through various stages of development and tweaking to reach its current state, which gets my full approval, so please do brew with confidence. The recipe can be found in full within the video's description, which is underneath the video window when viewed on a desktop computer. You will also find a link there to the full recipe on Brewfather, which can be used free of charge with some restrictions. I strongly suggest that you fully convert the recipe before ordering in your ingredients so that you're actually brewing the recipe as intended. I also strongly suggest that you brew this recipe as is the first time, rather than tweaking it, as tweaks are already in place to bring this recipe into a very good place. I have an easy guide to recipe conversion using Brewfather on my channel, as shown on screen now. Within this video, this recipe is being brewed using a Grainfather G40 brewing system to the volume of 20 litres or 5.28 US liquid gallons, but as part of the conversion process this can be scaled and shaped to suit your own brewing system and volume requirements. Shown on screen is the water profile that I recommend for using with this recipe, which is a balanced profile. Using the right water profile is very important. After all, beer is mostly water and its balance is vital so that it suits the beer that you are brewing. Naturally, this water profile is just one way to go here. If you have a different profile that you really enjoy with this kind of beer style, then go with that. But just bear in mind that this recipe was written with this profile in mind and has been tweaked according to the results obtained using this profile. Brewfather has very good documentation on how to use the software to make the necessary water changes too. This makes the whole process very easy, so as such I suggest that all brewers, irrespective of experience, start treating their water as soon as possible for the very best of end results. You may well be surprised how easy this actually is. Let's now start with the actual brew, beginning with the mash. At this point I have preheated the mash water to the first mash step's temperature, and I have then added the contents of the grain bill, and I am now using Kegland's mash stirrer along with a drill to ensure that every grain is wet and there are no grain clumps. Doing it this way rather than with a mash paddle is certainly very fast, efficient and very satisfying. Shown on screen now is the mash schedule, which is slightly higher than average in temperature on the mash in phase to push the final gravity a touch higher to make the malty flavours sing a little bit more. Let's now start the mash and go through the grain bill here, explaining as we go. At 95% of our grist we have Morris Otter malt. Please do use this instead of regular pale ale malt, as it provides extra backing flavours that push this recipe further. Here you can expect a mildly malty flavour along with some nuttiness, plus you will find that beers created with Morris Otter tend to enjoy a little bit more body compared to those created with regular pale ale malt. This malt will also provide the bulk of our fermentables. Then at 4.3% we have caramel malt to the level of 50 EBC. Do not worry too much if you cannot obtain exactly this EBC of caramel malt. Go as close as you can and adjust your recipe within your brewing software to obtain the same colour level, or at least close. Your call. This caramel malt provides some underlying bready and biscuit flavouring, along with some very nice slightly sweet caramel notes. Then at a mere 0.7% we have black malt. Some brewers shy from using this malt, but frankly that's a shame, as when used sparingly like this it adds in a little extra colour, as well as some interesting background fruit in the form of currants and berries. The effect here will be subtle and somewhat classic too. Now at 0.7% this may seem like a very small amount and hardly worth bothering with, but truth be told you will not see more than 1% of black malt used in any English bitter recipe of any repute. Black malt is a very strongly flavoured malt too, so a very small amount like this goes a long way compared to the vast majority of other malts. After mash out it is then time to perform a sparge. Here I am using water that has been preheated to mash out temperature, but you could simply use cold water if that suits your setup. Naturally that will mean that your brew will drop in temperature some, and then the heat up to the boil will take longer. So if you can, it's a time saver to preheat your sparge water. The concept here is to free up all of those now sugar converted starches that are trapped within your grain bill. By performing a sparge will increase your efficiency, but many, including myself, also notice an enhancement of flavour. After or during the sparge you should set your brewing system to raise to boiling temperature. Your first job once the boil is reached is to clear the top head of protein. By skimming the top, as you can see me doing here, all of the protein will drop down to the bottom of the brewing system and join the rest of the waste products. However, it is vital that we keep the protein in the beer, as frankly it is part of the recipe of any beer. So if someone has told you that it was a great idea to remove this top phone and discard it, then I would urge you to ignore that bad advice and start stirring it in, and your beers will certainly improve. So let's now look at the boil and hop schedule. Traditionally this beer style would have been boiled for at least an hour, but these days that is just not necessary, so I'm using a modern 30-minute boil with no compromise. You can see that we have hop additions for 30 minutes at the start of the boil for bittering, and at 10 minutes for flavour and aroma. The hops for this one are East Kent Goldings, which should be easy to obtain from any good homebrew store across the world. Here is some further information on this hop variety via Hop Control. You can see that these are of course British hops that offer qualities that include earthy, lavender, honey, lemon, thyme, orange and floral notes. These flavours are smooth and somewhat delicate. These hops actually date back to 1790 according to records and are likely to be the most popular British hop these days. If for any reason you cannot obtain these, then good subs would be Fuggles or other types of Goldings. Once the boil was over, I used the Grainfather counterflow chiller to chill and transfer into my fermenter, which in this case is Grainfather's own conical fermenter. The foam you see here is mostly from my sanitation step, but at this point any splashing that we do is a positive thing for our yeast. My yeast selection for this recipe is Nottingham from Lallemand. This is Lallemand's English-style yeast that is known for its high performance and general all-round reliability. Unlike some English styles of yeast, this one just offers a slightly fruity aroma and is rather neutral. I preferred the results from Nottingham for this recipe, compared to others that offered more fruit, as it simply allows all of this recipe's intended flavours to shine through, including all of the more subtle flavours included. Shown on screen now is the fermentation temperature that I recommend for this recipe. You will likely find that this will ferment out within 7 to 10 days. You might then want to cold crash it for 1 to 3 days, as this style is one that is usual to see with some clarity, though naturally this is not essential if you're not entering a competition, of course. Let's now take a look at the finished beer, starting with the pour, and I will then give you my tasting notes. You can see that the pour is a light golden colour, but once in the glass the end beer is a deeper golden amber. This beer has been under 12 psi of pressure, which is 0.83 bars, and I am using this pressure for serving too. This example you see here is at around the 4-week point from kegging, and has conditioned flavour-wise very nicely in this time. Let's now go through my tasting notes, starting with aroma. The aroma found here is fresh, fruity and floral with a biscuit and bready undertone. Flavour. This beer is nice and light on entry. The experience in the middle is a mix of easy moderate caramel and toffee notes with low malty flavours, along with some light bread and biscuit undertones which end with a smooth easy bitterness which is a little floral and fruity. And here are some of my notes. True to the English bitter style, this beer is very inoffensive and offers a very easy flavourful drinking experience, and at a mere 4.2% ABV you will be surprised how complex this beer actually is as you progress down the glass. Here is my final impression, an easy drinking classic example of an English best bitter, with plenty to enjoy flavour-wise that can be enjoyed within any season, that pairs well with a good variety of different food, all the way from spicy and hot to burgers. So there you have it. Do let myself and the community know what you think of this video, and then later on, once you have brewed this recipe, your own tasting notes. It is always appreciated to have feedback. Cheers everyone. I do hope that you found this video useful, informative and interesting. If so, why not consider liking and subscribing? For further support you can join the channel's Facebook group, and if you would like to support the channel then check out the channel's merchandise store, as all profits go back into the channel. Until next time, happy brewing!